Welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. We're going to have a quick video tonight. Not a whole lot of prep involved in this, and probably not a whole lot of introduction necessary. I asked in the group, one of the groups yesterday, if people wanted country fried steak or salmon patties tonight, and most people said country fried steak, and we will do salmon patties just a little later, just in a couple of days. In thinking about that and going through what I have in storage to cook, it dawned on me that I've been doing an awful lot of fried food lately. And since Fred and I have to eat what I cook, I'm going to back off on the fried food just a little bit. Not that I think fried food is bad for you. It's just, I don't want it every night. So I'm going to be thinking of some things that are not fried. And I'm thinking of low country shrimp and grits. So we're going to be doing that pretty soon. So, very quick explanation. Country fried steak. It is cube steak that's been partially cut through in order to tenderize it. It's generally made from a less than perfect cut of beef, and it is, but it's very good because they've tenderized it, and then you cook it up to make it a little more flavorful. What normally happens, the traditional way to serve it, is that you make milk gravy. Some people do brown gravy. We're going to do milk gravy. I'll do brown gravy in another recipe. All that I've done to prepare here, and by the way, I need a knife. All I've done to prepare here is I salted the meat, I washed the meat off, I salted the meat, and I have it soaking in buttermilk. You know I like to use buttermilk for breading. And this piece is huge. It's just too big. I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half. I normally use shears for that, but my shears are in the dishwasher. So I'm going to cut it in half with a knife. And you can tell it's difficult sometimes to cut cube steak because it's so tender. But I'm going to cut that one a little bit because it's just too big. And neither one of us want a piece that big. So this has been soaking in the buttermilk. This is flour. It is self-rising flour. For country fried steak, I don't put anything in to crisp it up. I like it kind of tender. And I like it double dipped. So we're going to double dip this. The oil, let me check the oil. How I check the oil is, yeah, it sizzles. So all you need to make successful country fried steak, to make the cube steak part of it, is some buttermilk, the cube steak, a little salt, and hot oil. Now I'll say what I often say, a lot of people like to kick it up a notch. If you want to kick it up a notch, go right ahead. I don't. I want to taste the meat and I want to taste the gravy, but a lot of people put cayenne pepper on it. They put seasoning salt. I do have some seasoning salt, but I almost never use it. So I'm going to dip that again just to get just a little more of the flour to stick to it. And it's so tender it's coming apart. So the key to fried food is to have your shortening hot so that it starts sizzling right away. This could be a little bit hotter, so I'm not going to rush it. One of the reasons I cut this piece in half is because Fred likes to put it in a biscuit, and a great big piece can't be put in a biscuit. I'm not going to go too quickly because I want the oil to regain its heat. And it is sizzling, but I want it to sizzle just a little bit better. And I'll mention again, there are a few tricks to successful frying. One of them is just don't overwork it. You just don't have to play with it all the time. You don't have to turn it a bunch of times. We're cooking in cast iron. Good cast iron. This is, by the way, my favorite Piqua skillet. I don't mean it's my favorite of Piqua skillets. I mean that's the name of it. It's a favorite Piqua skillet. And it's very old. I use it a good bit. I like it because it has nice straight sides. And it holds a little more than some of the other skillets. I hope you see what I'm doing. I'm just dipping this back in to the milk a little bit. My pan is still not going to hold at all. This was just 2 pieces of cube steak. And they were huge pieces of cube steak. So they're going to fill the pan up. And Fred and I will have one tonight, and then tomorrow I will make some fresh gravy and we'll have the other 2 for breakfast. Because country fried steak is really good for breakfast. So you can see the oil is now sizzling. I have one more piece that I will put in when that's done. And I'm going to let it sit in the flour for a short time. And because the way cube steak is cut, with the little ridges all the way through it, the flour will go into those ridges and that helps with the crispness. That's one of the reasons I double dipped it. I don't usually double dip in breading, but with country fried steak I do. Now, I'm not going to stay here with you the whole time, but I'll tell you again, just because it's important when frying. Leave it alone. Make sure your oil gets good and hot. This might not have been quite hot enough, but and don't put your glove on it. It'll melt your glove. We're going to leave it alone until we can see a visible crust forming around the edges, because we don't want to try to turn it before that. If you do, you're going to pull the breading off. So we just have a little patience. I'm not covering this. It's not thick. It's a very thin piece of meat, so it doesn't need to be covered. It can get hot enough to make the crust without the covering. So we'll come back, and it may take 10 minutes, but I'll keep an eye and tell you about how long it takes. So we'll be back in a few. It's been about 8 minutes, and so I'm going to check. Several people said they really had trouble making country fried steak. I didn't get a hint as to all of the issues, but I can pretty much tell folks have trouble frying. And the tips for frying are pretty simple. Make sure your oil is hot enough. I've got this on 9 out of 12, and it could be just a little bit higher. But the trick that most folks don't get, and I tell it to you every time I fry, is don't turn it, leave it alone until it lets go. Till it will slide easily in the pan, which means that the crust is formed. You just don't want to turn it until the crust is formed. I actually want to let this cook just another, I don't know, half a minute or so, because I'm not happy with the temperature oil I had. It wasn't too cold, but it wasn't as hot as I would have liked it. So I want the crust to be firm, not hard, but firm and golden brown before I turn it. And that's really the only thing that I can think of that you need to know about successful breaded frying. And I think we've got a piece here ready to turn. I am a little gentle with it to start with, but if you'll see, I can turn this and the breading stays. See, this one moves easily. That one moves easily. It has let go of the skillet, and so your crust is going to stay. Now with this, it'll get another turn at least. And I'm going to wait until it firms up on that side before I try to turn it again. I wish that I could, there's always things in videos that I can't actually show you well. If you were here, I could show you better. There's still some spots on this that are not golden brown. When we're done, they'll be golden brown all the way through. With cube steak, it's important to cook it golden brown all the way because the flour has gone into the little crevices in the meat. And if you're not careful, it will stay gummy. And we don't want it to be gummy, we want it to be done all the way through. And when you're breading country fried steak or when you're breading cube steak, sometimes it's so tender it'll come apart in your hands. And you will get the breading in those crevices too. So cooking it to a crispness is pretty important, and we're going to do that. So I'm going away for another few minutes, and then I will come back to you about another 8 to 9 minutes when it's golden brown and crispy on the other side, and then we'll do one more turn. It's been less than 8 minutes, but I can see that we're getting a nice crust on the other side. We have a nice sizzle. It has let go from the skillet. I'm going to turn it again. I'm going to place it in the pan so that the side that was not quite as done gets a little more of the heat. I hope you see that we're getting that nice golden brown. Our crust has stayed pretty much intact. And another 5 or 6 minutes or so and this will be done, and then we'll make the gravy, which is the make or break part of country fried steak. And it's so easy, you're going to be so happy. Be back in about 5. I think this is done just the way we want it. So we have a crust. I think you'll see it's not going to be a hard crust. Drain, drain. I'm going to let that sit while I cook this last piece, and then I'm going to come back and show you how I made the gravy. That'll give me a chance to get all prepared. This won't take long, and we'll come back. Alrighty then, my extra piece is done, and we're going to make gravy. The first thing I'm going to do is pour some of this grease off. It's too much. It's more than we need for gravy. And pouring hot grease is something you have to be really careful about. So I have a glass bowl here. This is pretty hot even though I have turned it off. And I'm going to take out, I'm going to move this over here. Take out this grease My guess is if you cook much, you have a container where you keep, where you pour off extra grease. I'm not at my normal station here, so I'm gonna do it this way. If you are pouring something hot into glass, put a metal spoon in it, and it will transfer the heat. I'm not sure I'm my own camera person if you see what I'm doing. I'm taking the top off, and if you see the brown stuff in the bottom, which all of the little cracklings that are caught on the pan are called fond. F-O-N-D, fond. And I want to get most of this grease out because I want to measure pretty close to the measurements for gravy. But I want to leave those cracklings down in there because they give a flavor. So I think that's what we've got here. So I'm going to turn my pan back on. So let me tell you the secret to gravy. Gravy is a variation on a bechamel sauce. Milk gravy is. And the measurements for that are equal parts oil, lard, butter, whatever you're using for oil, flour, and then exactly 4 times that by volume of liquid. So let me simplify that a little bit. 2 tablespoons of oil and 2 tablespoons of flour need 1 cup, because what you've got is an ounce of flour and an ounce of oil. That gives you 2 ounces. 4 times that is 8, so you get 1 cup of liquid. So what I have here is 2 cups. So I want 4 tablespoons full of oil, and I've pre-measured this. My tablespoon measurement is plastic. I don't want to melt it. So I measured this spoon to get the tablespoonful. And you want that to be fairly hot. Now if you were making a bechamel sauce, you would be striving for a white color. We don't care. A nice dark color is fine. I've got 4 tablespoons full of flour here. I'm going to put it in. If you've watched me very often, you've heard me talk about the effect of a metal pan and a metal utensil on color. And immediately you're going to see, because we have been frying in this oil, and because the oil, the little frying cracklings that are in here, the fond, is very important to the flavor. And I took 4 tablespoons full of flour out of the breading. I'm not using my silicone whisk. I'm using a metal spoon. I am going to step away and get my metal whisk, because you need a whisk. And this is going to have some little lumps and bumps in it, and they're going to be tasty lumps and bumps. Let me get my whisk. Okay. Got my whisk now. I can whisk. And somebody out there is saying, oh no, don't scratch that cast iron pan. And I'm going to tell you, if you've got this seasoned right, you're not going to scratch it. The finish on it is polymerized. This does not hurt it. A metal spatula doesn't hurt it. It's fine. When I'm done with this, I'm going to wash it in hot soapy water. Yes, I am going to wash it in hot soapy water. And then I'm going to dry it. And then I'm going to put it on the stove and heat it up. And then I'm going to rub a very thin layer of oil on it. And I'm going to put it away, and it's going to be just like brand new. So if you see we're getting a little darkness here, I do want a little color to the gravy. I don't want to add anything to it. I'm going to let this roux darken. And as the roux darkens, it's going to lend a wonderful flavor. It's not just a thickener. The flour that you use to make gravy adds flavor, but it can only add the flavor if you let it fully cook. And it gives a deepness of flavor to your gravy that you don't get if you put your milk in too soon. And if you can see the wonderful nutty color that we're getting, and you could smell the wonderful nutty smell, you would never rush your gravy. You would always let it sit and simmer and take on that lovely darker color. Okay, I've rearranged a little bit just so that you could see this a little bit better. This is a nice dark color, not scorching. I don't mean let it scorch. I have 2 cups of milk here. It's possible I may need just a little bit more. If I need more, I'll add more. This is cold milk into a hot roux, so you must add it slowly. You want to temper it. And whisk, whisk, whisk. I'm always amazed at how the roux gets thicker when you add the liquid, but it does. Whisk, whisk, whisk. We don't want any lumps. Now, I didn't add any more salt and pepper to this. There was salt in the flour. Once we get done, you can salt it to taste. You can add some nice black pepper if you like it. If you insist, you can add some hot sauce, or you could have put that right on the steak before you fried it. So we're going to let this cook. It's not quite ready, but it'll be ready pretty quickly. 3 minutes, maybe 4. We watch it when it starts to get thick and take on a velvety sheen. Then it's ready. I do want to show you this though. No lumps. There is some fond little crackles, little pieces of breading that came off, little tiny pieces of steak. But there are no lumps in the gravy. And as long as you follow those measurements, which is equal portions of flour and fat, and 4 times that amount by volume of liquid. So 1 tablespoon flour, 1 tablespoon fat to a 1/2 cup of milk, because that's 2 ounces. So that's 1 ounce times 4 gives you 4. So we're going to let this bubble for about 3 to 4 minutes, and it'll be gravy, and then I'll plate this up for you and you can see what we've got. We're thickening up here. In about 2 minutes. We like it just a little bit thicker than that. Now, I'll tell you, if you don't like the fond in it, if you don't care for the little crunchies that I left, you can certainly pour them out, start with a clean pan, go from there. But we like that. Not everybody does. This is electric. I'm going to turn the heat off. You see that nice bubble? And we're getting a little thickness. And we're going to take it up. A lot of this is preference. If you want it thicker, you can cook it a little bit longer. A lot of the finished product is controlled by time. Okay, let's see what we've got. Country fried steak. Let me try to show you what we have here. Now, many people in that last few minutes of the gravy cooking like to put the steak back into the gravy and let it simmer together. We don't, but that's perfectly fine if that's what you want to do. So here is our country fried steak, done all the way through with a crispy crunch to it. It's tender. Has a little crunch. It's very flavorful. It's not hard, but it's also not gummy. Here is our gravy. So, old-fashioned country fried steak. I think you might enjoy this. Thank you for joining us on Debbie's Back Porch. We'll see you later in the week for shrimp and grits, low country style.